Most of us woke up on Sunday with the tragic and surprising news that U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham passed away at the age of 71. A longtime senator, had represented the Palmetto State as its U.S. Senator since the early 2000s. Before that was a congressman and a state legislator. Before that, served in the United States Air Force as a JAG, and just a just a legend, really, for what all he's been able to withstand. He ran for president in 2016 against Donald Trump. Those two were rivals. They ended up patching things up and had a on again, off again relationship for most of the last 15 years or so, but most of it's been on, and he was a champion for sure for President Trump. Lindsey Graham passing away. Here on this episode of the Y'all Show, we're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. Senate as it is in play in 2026, and how not only is South Carolina up for grabs now, but we actually have 16 southern states. 14 of those states will be competitive and have some kind of race of note here in a few months. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to talk a little politics here on today's Y'all Show podcast. And up first, let's take a look at who all is up. As you can see from this really crafty little graphic we've created, Republican states, at least states that currently have a Republican senator that is up for election, or their replacement, so to speak, is up for election. You can see on the left-hand side, Alabama is Tommy Tuberville's stepping aside to run for governor. Arkansas's got a re-election for Tom Cotton. You've got Florida. They haven't even had their primaries yet. We'll talk about more of that in a second. Kentucky, Mitch McConnell leaving office. Louisiana, you've got Letlow, who primaried the Cassidy guy that voted against Trump in the impeachment. You've got North Carolina up for grabs, Oklahoma, South Carolina with Lindsey Graham. That was going to be a race anyway, but now Governor McMaster has appointed Graham's sister, Darlene, to take over the final months of his term. You're still going to have a primary coming up in the Palmetto State on the Republican side to go against the Democrat. Tennessee has its own primary. I'll tell you some news about the volunteer state in a second. Texas has got a very hotly contested U.S. Senate race coming up. West Virginia, as their longtime senator, is up for re-election. And then two southern states that have Democratic senators also have elections, with Georgia going to be pretty competitive. And then the Commonwealth of Virginia is also going to be one of our southern states that will have an election of sorts here in November. Again, a lot of excitement as the U.S. Senate this year could switch hands. It is expected that the U.S. House will switch hands. Many of the pundits think the Senate's going to be able to barely hold on to Republican control, but we don't know, especially with people like Lindsey Graham passing away. Mitch McConnell, we've already seen obituaries written about him, and that's not even surprising, but there's still a lot to go on between now and November. Let's take a look at the profiles, if you will, of all of these people running and who they're running against across the Southeast. Maryland and Missouri are our two southern states that are not having any U.S. Senate races here, FYI. In Alabama, you've got Barry Moore, and he is a representative. He's going to be going up against a Birmingham lawyer there in the heart of Dixie, Republican expected to win there. Also, you've got Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Now, he's going up against Miss Schaffner there, and I had to look this up. She is a Arkansas Delta farm girl from, believe it or not, Schaffner, Arkansas. And I had to look up where that was on the map. That is up around Newport in northeast Arkansas, not far from Jonesboro. As mentioned, Florida's got a primary coming up in early August, as Senator Moody is on the ballot, but she's got other primary contestants on the Republican side, so we can't fill her in as the candidate for November yet. And then she's got several Democrats also vying for the Democratic U.S. Senate seat in the Sunshine State. Georgia's got a hotly contested race, as you've got Representative Collins, who's been in office a couple of years. He's going up against Jon Ossoff, the senator for the Peach State that's been in office a couple of years. That's going to be one to watch that could flip here in a couple of months. Then you've got in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, as mentioned, Mitch McConnell dropping out. And in the Commonwealth, you've got two guys that will be going up for office. One of them, I think, has more of the, let's say, seasoned political experience, and that's your Republican Barr, as he is a congressman. The other gentleman is a Louisville area guy that I think's in the state legislature in Frankfort, but not necessarily a household name. So that one probably will stay without too much of a challenge in Republican hands in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Then you have, moving on from Kentucky to Louisiana, Letlow. Again, she's been a congressman up in northeast Louisiana. Her husband actually was elected back before COVID and died of COVID before he could take office. She ran, got his seat, and now she's become a Republican darling. She's won the primary, beating out incumbent Cassidy. And now Letlow is going to go up against Jamie Davis, a farmer, a row crop farmer from Waterproof, Louisiana. So good luck to whoever wins that race in the Pelican State. The former Ag Commissioner of Mississippi is Cindy Hyde-Smith. She's represented Mississippi in the U.S. Senate for a few years. She shouldn't have too much of a problem against Scott Colom. He is a Columbus area district attorney, but a savvy guy, could give her a run for the money. Mississippi shouldn't be in play, but hey, politics makes strange bedfellows, they say. Now, North Carolina is going to definitely be a hotly contested race, as you've got the former R-S.C. chair Michael Whiteley going up against the former governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, in a seat currently held by a Republican who's stepping aside, and now Whiteley is going to be the Republican guy against Cooper. Cooper, a multi-term governor of North Carolina, FYI. Oklahoma still hasn't had their Democrat decided, but Kevin Hearn's going to be the Republican choice. He is a congressman, and he'll be vying for one of the two top Senate seats for the Sooner State. South Carolina, as mentioned, has the death of Lindsey Graham to deal with. His sister filling in for the next few months. She won't be on the ballot, though, when they have a special primary in August, and that's still a couple of days away from being finalized to who's going to put their name in the hat. But expect people like Ralph Norman, Nancy Mace, Lieutenant Governor Yvette, who lost her bid to become governor, and others to vie for the Republican nominee. We know who the Democrat is, and that's Charleston pediatrician Annie Andrews, there in her nice-looking outfit for her profile photo here on this graphic. South Carolina with a somewhat competitive race now that we have no incumbent going up against Andrews. Tennessee shouldn't be too much of a problem, as Bill Hagerty is the incumbent, and the Democratic primary for the Tennessee is going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. Texas, as mentioned, Ken Paxton is your Attorney General in the Lone Star State. He won a very tough contest against John Cornyn on the Republican side, and he'll be going up against the state politician for the Lone Star State, James Tallarico, in a contest that could decide control of the Senate, to be honest with you. Virginia, the Republican primary still to be determined. The Democrats don't have a challenger for Mark Warner, the incumbent expected to win again in the Commonwealth. And then West Virginia's got incumbent Shelley Moore Capito against Rachel Fetty Anderson. She is a Morgantown attorney that has been, I think, the deputy mayor of Morgantown, and that shouldn't be too much of a contest coming up in November in the Mountain State. But that gives you a pretty good overview of who all's on the ballot and what's going on. It's not just South Carolina making the news. You've got a lot of incumbents, but frankly, a lot of things can change. In fact, I didn't mention for Tennessee, although Bill Hagerty is on the docket for being the only Senate race right now, Marsha Blackburn is running for governor. And if I guess she's already got the Republican. No, she hasn't actually. They've got a primary in Tennessee in early August. If she wins that primary, then she wins the governor's race, as she would be expected to do in the volunteer state. She would have to resign her Senate seat to become Tennessee's next governor. So you're going to have an opening there in the volunteer state, assuming Marsha Blackburn wins. So that could be two possible changes in Tennessee, and then other goings on. It makes for excitement, doesn't it? And that's why here at the Y'all Show, we'll cover all this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and whatever means of communication you've got here across the Southland to let people know who we are and what we're all about, because we sure appreciate your interest in the Southland. And hey, we appreciate your interest in the Y'all Show. Jon Rawl, we will catch y'all later.